Okay, everyone. So welcome to our sixth meeting. So it is also our last meeting of the school year. It's our consecutive in person. This year we had a different setup with trying to balance our in person, our virtual. Sure, we could all get together so that we can get work done. So we'll start with our opening prayer. It's there on the screen, and we always use the pastoral plan. Just for the reason being is, this is what our kids are doing. This is what they see in school. We are coming to the end with hearts of kindness and love. I believe on June 10th, Nurturing Our Catholic Community will have a presentation, and then they will release With Minds of Justice and Peace. I know a lot of our schools constantly doing artwork that's based around this prayer. And when we say this prayer, as you're reading the words, it kind of says what we're doing. Kind of almost feel like it's telling us, it's writing the story of what we're doing around this table, what our kids are doing in the classroom, what staff is doing maybe in the boardroom. It kind of speaks to that. So we sign ourselves in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Ever-present God, we always walk in your light and love, surrounded by your care and concern. Our life is a journey with the many choices we make along the way. Grant that we may follow the way of Jesus with eyes of faith and hope, hearts of kindness and love, and minds of justice and peace, always supported by your guidance, your strength, and your safety. May we discover your presence in the people and events we encounter each day. We try to proclaim the good news of the gospel by walking and acting justly, walking and loving tenderly, and walking humbly with you and with one another. Together we ask this through Jesus Christ, your Son, who walks with us each day. Amen. All saints,
Pray for us.
To go to,
Want me to read it, Joe?
pull it up or have it in front of you. Go ahead.
Out of deep respect for Indigenous peoples in Canada, we acknowledge that all Toronto Catholic District School Board properties are situated upon traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Wendat peoples. We also acknowledge the land covered by Treaty 13 is held by the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and Toronto is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Covenant. We also recognize the contributions and enduring presence of all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people in Ontario and the rest of Canada.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the line acknowledgement. We're going to keep going. Item 3 is roll call. Okay, so Ward 1, Jennifer.
Here.
Ward 2, Gabriella.
Here.
Ward 3, Joe, on here. Ward 4 is vacant. Ward 5 East, Ravi. On here. Ward 5 West, Daniel. Here. Ward 6, Gus. Ward 7, Lisa, sent regrets. Ward 8 East, Rochelle.
Present.
Ward 8 West is vacant. Ward 9, Abe. Here. Ward 10, Brian. Here. Ward 11 North, James. Here. Ward 11 South, Hazy. Ward 12 is vacant. Our secondary parents, West is vacant. Annalisa for Central, Annalisa. Here, and East is vacant. Community members, Moasi Toronto, Natalia. See representatives, Ida Lapredi. From board, Ryan Peterson. Marco Uchi is not here, and this evening we also have a special guest, Antonella Chadia, He is our legal person at the board, so should be given a certification. Right? So approval of the agenda. Everyone's had a chance to look it over. It's there on the screen. For item in your package, 7 only has 7A, but there is a 7B and 7C. Okay. So I know our last meeting was a very long meeting. We had a lot of presentations. We had our CFO bring us a lot of information. So tonight we're trying to balance, as I always try to do with you guys. So it should be more lesser, shorter. We'll see. Any questions with regards to the agenda? Can I get someone to move it? Okay. Any second it?
Second.
Or anyone opposed? Or item is approved. Are there any declarations of interest? Tonight's agenda? Any declarations of interest? Any declarations of interest? Okay, you're done. It's the say it 3 times.
Oh, it's say 3 times.
It's the thing the parent does, you know, when you're trying to get your child to come inside from outside. Come to.
I don't know, I just yell at them.
So approval, signing of the minutes from the previous meeting. So our last meeting was on April 17th. Those are on page 2. So let's got a quick opportunity to take a look. Our last meeting, I think, again, outside of the presentations we had, Superintendent Kakamo with regards to Fully Alive and with regards to bullying prevention and intervention policy. We also had our CFO bring us up to date with the budget. Are there any questions regarding our minutes? I will move the minutes. Okay, Gus, move minutes. A seconder. Jen? Is there anyone opposed to our minutes? Okay, so none opposed, minutes are received. So, 7A is the presentation from the chair. So it's in there, so you guys can give it a quick look. So as always, from month to month, I'll continuous conversation with both Director Designate and our Parent Engagement Coordinator, discussing items, agenda items and things that go on in between our meetings. Continue to communicate with my CPIC, with the executive members regarding issues and items and things that are happening. Communicating also since the last meeting with some CSPCs who sent emails regarding board things. I was at the OAPSI conference on the 22nd of April in Kingston. It was a wonderful day with some great speakers. We had a great evening. Food was good. Kingston's a lovely town. You have time to. We didn't have time to visit, but it was nice where we were. I was at the ICE symposium from the 8th to the 10th. So this is, for those who don't know, this is a symposium that happens every 5 years.
Next year's Niagara Falls.
No, this is the ICE symposium.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Not the OAPSI.
Not your one.
So it happens every 5 years. Basically, every Catholic board in the province of Ontario is invited. So it's 29 Catholic boards and 8 French Catholic. It is a lot of board leads, directors of education, superintendents, principals, teachers, and the parents as well. So it's a huge, I think there were about 460 people at this event. And the goal is to talk about Catholic education, to keep Catholic education relevant. Rochelle was there as well, with myself and Gus. So it was a good couple of days, excellent speakers. But the one thing I want to tell everyone is that I think the most powerful of the 3 days was mass. When so we had the art, we got a chance to meet Archbishop Leo, and he's such a he just radiates like energy. Like he's so when you see him, he comes this very humble, but just gives off like this amazing. Like you want to always kind of stand around him and kind of absorb his energy. He said mass, and like I said, this was the high point for those 3 days for me. We were about 300 people in just a hall, regular hall. So, there was a makeshift stage, there was an altar, but hearing everyone respond and pray together in unison as one voice made you kind of understand that the Catholic education is going to be here. You shouldn't be worried, because if all these people are here right now, we're all praying together, right? And it was very beautiful. It was very beautiful. Kind of topped up those 3 days. Attended the Ministry of Education provincial meeting, again with board leads. I was on it with Manuela. The topic this time around, these are quarterly meetings. They spoke about GSN, so grants for student needs, and how our boards are funded. So that was the main topic for the day. And again, they always touch on pro-grant and parent engagement, and they're always asking questions, what are we doing? What are we doing well? What isn't working? So things of that nature. Monitor our social media, review board agendas, and watch board meetings whenever there's an opportunity. Created the April draft minutes, prepared May agenda. Actually, thank you to our recording secretaries at the board who helped me with that. And lastly, our secondary parent member East, Alicia, sent me an email with her resignation. She does, it was a nice email she sent. For the short time she was with us, she said she enjoyed the time around the table, and being around the table and seeing the parents around the table, she believes that, our students, everything, we're in good hands. So lots of faith and trust in CPIC. She just, for personal reasons, she had to resign. Okay, are there any questions with regards to any comments? Kazi, do you want to say your piece now, or?
Sure. I can say my piece. Okay, so I also attended UAPC conference, and the focus of the conference was deepening our faith as engaged parents, held in Kingston. There were 3 speakers. They were really, really good. The first one was Dr. Jacqueline Lombardi, and she spoke of many things, but I'll just talk about what stood out with me with Dr. Lombardi was how to deal with resilience, and that when we don't get what we want or we're asking for, when we pray or want something, we don't ask why didn't we get it, but ask what now, what's next, what's my next task that I have to do, what do I have to work on, and stuff like that, because there's a path, we just have to find out how we're going to follow that. She also left her website that you should go to, which has lots of resources, josephinelombardi.com. Next up was Teresa Kennedy. Teresa Kennedy works with the School Mental Health Ontario and the Ontario English Catholic Teachers Association, and she talked about many mental wellness strategies that we can use with ourselves and with our children. And then she provided the website, which also again has lots of various resources on that website. And the one that stood out with me for Kennedy was when she talked about the 4 finger affirmations that we can have for our children. So basically it's a positive way to motivate and for perseverance for our children. And the purpose of this is to help students think positively in the face of stress or challenges by using affirmations to promote confidence, growth mindset, self-regulation, and resiliency. So that is, for example, you would tell your child to come up with four things that attribute to each finger. For example, you could start to brainstorm and come up with, I can do this, I can do division, I'll try my best, I am loved today. So you just come with brainstorms and they work on these 5 affirmations for each finger, and it just helps them throughout their day. And there is extensive evidence to show that the relationship between thoughts, feelings, and actions, and practicing using positive thoughts can influence our emotions and behaviors, and is helpful in ways that can help with reframing negative events and providing more optimistic outlook. And then she went on to say that for a Catholic connection, loving oneself is part of being fully alive. And by recognizing and appreciating the unique gifts we have been given, we can celebrate and share those gifts. And our last speaker was Miguel Martinez. I think he's been at all of, yeah.
It was here, right?
Yeah, he came in Toronto for that one. So he is an excellent, uplifting. He got us on our feet and danced. So some of us were dancing in our seats, and we were doing a gratitude dance that he had learned or came up with from his family, and that was a lot of fun. He's very engaging, and so what I got from his speech was where he talked about 7 things to do with kids that can scientifically increase oxytocin. I don't know if I said that right. Thank you, the love chemical. And it's like the dopamine drug for love chemicals. And he stated 7 things to try to do with your children, and not all at the same time, but pick one and do for 30 days. Would be self-love. So write on a sign, I am awesome, and stick it to your wall, your bedroom wall. So when you wake up in the morning, you see that first thing in the morning. Meditate and prayer. It connects the brain. Start a gratitude journal, and you just start writing one thing that you're grateful for. And he did mention that children would probably say silly things at first, but you can't repeat it. So once you get through all the silly things, then you get to the real stuff that you're really grateful for. So just keep that up. And then music and laughter. That's when he talked about his dance. So we did a dance with him. Write a message, a personal message to your children, and just put into their lunch boxes and stuff every day. And so they could, I guess, know that they're being thought of or loved. And give a gift of service. Just little tiny gifts, little token gifts that might be a little token just that you and your child might have a connection with. And incorporate vitamin C into your diet every day. And that was it. So that was it. I actually enjoyed the whole event. Talked about Mass, and then we had our dinner in the nighttime where they had also some awards that were given away, and some dancing. It was fantastic. Yes, we did some dancing. I did not start the dancing, but there was some dancing.
I might have finished the dancing, but went later into the nights. Thanks, Bessie. And I thought because we sponsored some reps to go up to the event, just to get a recap. This is I know Daniel's been before me, and guys have attended as well, but it was Fazzy's first. Jen and Daniel. Anyone opposed? Okay, and then chair's report is report. So yes, we'll keep on.
Okay. Our expenses from our last meeting to today, so April 17th to May 29th. So we had a motion on the floor at our last meeting that we were able to sponsor 20 TCDSP parents to go to the OAPC conference. 5 took advantage of that. So we sponsored 5 parents at $250 each. So our total expense on the 5 parents from TCDSP was $1,250. We also reimbursed 3 CPIC members who attended the conference, and that total expense came out because in our policy where we do full reimbursements for mileage, hotel, and we have our meal policy. So those total reimbursements were $1,758.60. Our meal from our last meeting was $298. So our total expense for the last month was $3,306.62, giving us a new balance as just over $86,650 ending this month.
So it's not reflective on this report right now, because this is end of April. And Gus is basically almost at end of May. We will see these, this is his line by line, and we'll see these at the September meeting. Are there any-
Plus, for members, please submit your mileage up to today so we can reimburse you as well.
Any questions? Yes.
Just had a question, the printing and supplies, 246, is that just the CPIC papers?
CPIC agendas, whatever we had to send down to the print shop the last couple of meetings. The last two meetings, though, we printed in-house. And while that Ryan were supportive, we can use their printer in their office, so we don't have to have an expense on that for our agendas at least.
Any other questions? Someone to move the financial report? Is there anyone opposed? Okay, so seeing none, our financial report is received. Okay, so here's 7C. 7C is, so again, I introduced earlier Antonella Chiadia, who is the Executive General Counsel and Head of Legal Services. She'll be here discussing the amended student trustee policy. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. So you can.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, everyone. So you'll see on the slide and in the agenda, we're talking about the revised student trustee policy. The change in the policy is related to a decision of the court, which I have noted on the title, Kandaharian and York Catholic District School Board. So the reason I'm here is the board approved the change to the student trustee policy in March 2023 at its last board meeting. And part of the approval of the motion included a sort of sub-motion saying that legal counsel should attend CPIC, OAPC, and Catholic Parent Council meetings to share the legal basis for the decision to make the change to the student trustee policy. So that's why I'm here tonight, to share with our education partners the basis of the policy change pursuant to the board motion. So we'll start. There's the objective of the presentation, as I just discussed. And the recent revision to the student trustee policy, to put it briefly, and it's all that it is about in terms of it's removing the Roman Catholicism requirement from the student trustee policy. So our policy previously stated to be a student trustee, you should be in secondary school, et cetera, and you should be a Roman Catholic student, Roman Catholic. So as a result of a court decision, that is no longer legal to impose a qualification on Roman Catholicism. The court made clear that there's no legal basis. And so this was taken to governance and the board for consideration. Our board and others have made the change to comply with the law. But I want to give you context because that's sort of a lot coming at you. So I've broken that down. And we'll have time for questions at the end and maybe throughout. I just want to get into it a little bit so you have the basis. So as you know, the Board of Trustees voted to remove the requirement, and it was necessary to do that to comply with the law. And the law is as stated by the court. So in October 2022, the Superior Court of Justice released a decision in this case. And the case involved a student, we'll talk about it in a little more detail, Daria Kandaharian,
who challenged the same requirement, the exact same requirement in the York Catholic District School Board student trustee policy. And she went to court on a full record. She made arguments. The Catholic School Board made arguments, and the court decided that the requirement could not stand. It was outside of the board's jurisdiction to impose the requirement, and it was unconstitutional because it discriminated on the basis of religious belief. And I'm going to unpack that for you. In November 2022, so 1 month after the decision came out, the York Catholic School Board decided that they would not appeal the court's decision. They would not seek leave to appeal. And so as it stands, that decision is part of the law in Ontario, and we're required to follow the court's decisions and ruling. So this is the meaning of the decision of the court. We did that here. We put it forward at governance committee. We put it forward at the board after it went to governance. And after a discussion, the decision was made to make the change because of the court's decision. So to unpack, the facts matter when you're thinking about cases. The student was in grade 10 at the time, and she went to York Catholic District. She wanted to be a student trustee, so she filled out the required paperwork. She was endorsed unanimously by the principal, vice principal, and the guidance counselors. And she started into the election process. She made a video, she had meetings, and so on. And then 2 days, 48 hours before the election, the Catholic School Board decided that she could not run as student trustee because she was not baptized Roman Catholic as required by the student trustee policy. So she thinks about this, she hears that, she's not pleased with it. She's an honor roll student. This is her perspective, her evidence to the court. She's an honor roll student. She's in grade 10. She attends the school. As you know, our high schools have Catholic and non-Catholic students attending. She was Orthodox Christian. And she ran because she wanted to participate in student leadership, both to get the skills of being a student leader and to be involved in student representation. At York Catholic District School Board, she was one of 5,000 students that are not Roman Catholic that were attending the York Catholic School Board at the time. So she's one of 5,000 who are in a similar position should they choose to run. She hears that she can't run for student trustee, despite being qualified, endorsed, and so on. And she says, I think this is unfair. She applies to the court and she says, I think that this requirement that a student trustee needs to be Roman Catholic in order to be elected shouldn't stand. It's unfair. And she went ahead and made the full argument. The court considered all the arguments and released a decision and said that the Catholicism requirement couldn't stand. And to break it up, there were two bases. One is there's no legal authority under the Ed Act. So we're going to start with that and the regulations to impose this requirement for student trustee. And I'm going to talk about that, and then we'll move to the second part of the decision. So here it is again summarized. And the court looked at the history of the position of student trustee. So as you know, the Ed Act says, creates the board, creates the position of student trustee, et cetera. And the position was created in 1997. Student trustee position was included in the Ed Act, and that's section 55 of the Ed Act. And then the Ed Act says, as you know, that the Minister of Education, the government can pass regulations that give some more specifics, right? And so there's a regulation that applies as well. So there's the Ed Act and Regulation 707 that set out requirements and all the legislative provisions with respect to being a student trustee in Ontario. So after reviewing the Education Act and the regulation, it was clear on the words of the act that student trustees are not part of board governance, is what the court found. They're not members of the board, they're representatives to the board. And indicators such as the following that are stated overtly in the Education Act: they don't have votes that are counted. Their votes are non-binding. They don't themselves have the authority under the Ed Act to bring a motion to the board, and they are not counted in quorum, so they do not have to attend for board business to continue. So the policy foundation for the position of student trustee is as a representative. It's not as a governance function, is what the court found. And here's sort of what I just covered. For me, I like to see it on one page sometime. The court decided that restricting representation, so student trustees being only Roman Catholic, is something that was introduced by the Catholic District School Board. It wasn't part of the scheme in the Ed Act or in the regulation. There's no authority for it. And so it goes contrary to the Ed Act. And there's no basis for imposing the qualification is what the court found in the Education Act. And so it's outside of a school board's authority to impose the Roman Catholicism requirement. So that's part one. And on its face, only on that basis, it would have failed and we would have had to change it. The next part of this relates, so I just reviewed this. The next part of this gets to the second part of the decision and the discussion at the court. The York Catholic School Board was relying in part, both on the Ed Act, but then also raising Section 93, special rights to Catholic education in the Constitution that the court recognized as important. The court looked at that and said, and we'll unpack this in future slides, that those powers did not extend to the student trustee position. So Section 93 protects the rights as they existed in 1867 at the time of Confederation. The position of student trustee was created in 1997 by the province. It wasn't a right or privilege that's protected by the Constitution in 1867. It didn't exist, so it could not have been protected at the time. So here's what I just covered. So the court did look at 93, and as I said, it said, you know, these are important rights. Section 93 is important, it's in our Constitution. And they are, you know, protected, but that doesn't mean that Catholic school boards are not public school boards and that we don't look at them as part of the publicly funded system. Here's the logic flow again, as I had on the other argument. Rights as they existed at the time of Confederation are protected by Section 93 of the Constitution. So governance, religion of teachers, and trustees are protected by Section 93. To get the protection or to fall under protection of Section 93, such changes have to go back to rights at Confederation. And as I said, the student trustee position does not go back to a right that existed at Confederation. There were no student trustees at that time. And the court said, as important as Section 93 rights are, and they are important, you have to be careful when you're interpreting these rights because you can't simply use it as a shield. It can't add rights that weren't present at Confederation. That wouldn't be consistent with the constitutional protection. And so right to equal treatment without discrimination on the basis of religion would apply to rights and privileges that existed at the time of Confederation, but they don't exist, they don't protect, they do apply, equal treatment rights do apply with respect to rights and privileges that were not in existence at the time of Confederation. So having looked at Section 93, the court says, okay, there were no non-Catholics attending separate school. In 1986, the government agreed to fund Roman Catholic school boards. There weren't student trustees at that time, but this is sort of the development of it. And at Confederation, there was no right or privilege that would have extended to student trustees. And so Section 93 protection is not available as it relates to student trustee position. It's limited to the student trustee position. So then this would engage this analysis under Section 15(1) of the Constitution, which is right to equal treatment without discrimination on various grounds, including religion. And on its face, the court said, of course, it discriminates on the basis of religion. It basically says you need to be Roman Catholic to run for student trustee. But then the other part of a court's analysis has to look at whether that is reasonable limit in all the circumstances. And the court looked at that and said there would be no rights or privileges that are affected prejudicially by allowing students that are not Roman Catholic to run for student trustee. Given what they do, they're not part of governance, they're representatives to the board for students. I covered this slide here. And so it's not a reasonable limit on the right. The policy is found to be unconstitutional. And so having considered both no authority under the Education Act and then applying equal treatment rights to the policy requirement, the court decided as follows. There's no authority under the Ed Act and the regs to put in place a religious-based qualification. It looked at section 93, which is the overhead that's up there. And then the requirement to be Roman Catholic to be student trustee was struck down as a breach of the charter and also falling outside of court jurisdiction. And on that basis, we amended, or we recommended to the board that it be amended, and the board made a decision to amend it to comply with the decision. So I tried to simplify it. I hope it wasn't too complex, but I wanted to sort of give you the logic flow so you can understand the step-by-step analysis. And I'm available now to answer questions, comments, anything that you like to put forward. We can do that so we can understand the decision.
Questions?
I have a question. I have two actually. So, what? Oh, I don't know. Do you want to ask first? So, something you said was that it was unconstitutional and discriminated on the grounds of religious beliefs.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering how, if this has an effect or an impact generally into registration into our school board. So if a parent cannot register their child if there isn't proof of baptism of at least a parent in the household, wouldn't that kind of fall into the same thing, that it's unconstitutional and it's discriminatory based on religious beliefs?
So in our high schools, we allow students that are not Catholic.
I
right?
understand, but in junior kindergarten, they're not. So my question goes to junior kindergarten, that if we are saying, and just for the record, I'm not opposed to this. I don't think it's, but just so that I understand, and if anybody listening has the thought, how does this set a precedent? Or if not, does this now open the door for non-Roman Catholic and non-Orthodox Christian parents and families to say, well, hey, listen, it's unconstitutional and it's discriminatory for you to say that my child can't attend this school if I don't have proof of baptism. So does this now set grounds for a parent to be able to say that and be accepted?
I think that the decision is limited to the student trustee position. The court was very careful to look at the facts of the case, both high school related and student trustee, and the fact that it didn't relate to governance and so on. What you're talking about is different. Anybody can go to court and make an argument. Anybody can say this is a precedent, other decisions are a precedent, but that would be a full argument that they would have to make. And someone who would, be in the position of saying, no, I think we should have a baptismal requirement for elementary schools. It would be open to them to say what I just said, that this relates to student trustee position, to high schools. That's specifically what the court looked at. I can't answer definitively if somebody's going to challenge it, what might happen, because I started by saying the facts matter, which is why I always put them out there, because we know there's a section 15 in the charter. We know there's section 93. We know there's an Ed Act that says certain things, but it all depends on the factual circumstances. But this was limited to student trustee through and through as you read the decision.
Okay. Okay, I get it. And I get that it's a, you know, it falls into a different category, but just curiosity of how it could go from there. The second question is relating to, you said many times that given that a student trustee has no authority under the Education Act, and that they're a representative and that they don't have a vote. That's how this decision was made. So would this decision be rescinded if at any point there is a vote and that it is approved, that student trustees do get a chance to vote and that their vote counts?
Student trustees could not get a counted vote. If they did, we wouldn't be complying with the Education Act that says they do not get a vote. And their vote is non-binding only. So
they
we
can't.
wouldn't be in that position because we would first have to violate the act. And if the board wanted to do that, I would call to their attention what the Education Act says and said, this says that they're not part of
They
government.
just can't.
They're student reps, but they're not part of governance. Governance is protected under
Okay.
Section 93 is what the court's saying.
Thank you so much. That was clear.
Well, a motion came through last year where they tried to put through allowing student trustees to vote. And I know that was quashed. My concern is if it happens again, obviously that would be brought up that that cannot happen, right?
I wasn't here at the time.
Yeah, no,
but
I know you, I'm
imagine
just
the
letting you,
advice was-
I'm just letting you know that
Yeah.
that did happen last year. Yeah,
Okay, got it.
okay.
Thank you.
Any questions then?
She took my question.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that.
Text me.
I understand how legal's involved, but in hindsight, when you think about the thought of not adhering to the Constitution about religion, why did it have to go through this big legal process when that statement is quite evident?
It went through the legal process because the York board had it in their policy. And I guess somebody said, this doesn't make sense to me. And they challenged it. So it forced an examination of it. I don't think it was examined before that time. And when you think back, student trustee position has only been in place since 1997. So there wouldn't have been that much time for somebody, I guess, either to feel they were treated unfairly, et cetera. And if they were, they may not have come forward. There were some there was affidavit evidence in the case that the court talks about where there were people who said that they felt excluded by the requirement. They were non-Catholic. They felt they couldn't run and made them feel like second-class citizens. They didn't take the step that Dara Kandaharian did to challenge it and to get a decision in the court. So that's all I can say about that.
Joe, go ahead.
Is the board now looking at other policies that that might be deemed discriminatory based on this outcome of this case?
This is limited to the student trustee policy. So when we receive court decisions, we read them and we make recommendations to the board if they apply and so on. And this was limited to student trustee policies. We made that recommendation. It is limited to student trustee.
But the same arguments that that student made, would the board not be concerned about those same arguments being applied to other policies and therefore leading to the same outcomes? Or the board doesn't go that far? Look at into those.
I think if we see or think that there's something problematic, we would, maybe initiate a review or start thinking about it. At this point, we've looked at the student trustee policy and that's the change that we recommended and was made.
You would make the recommendation and it's up to the board of trustees to make their own decision, right?
Yeah.
I forgot one question. Early on when you started, you said that legal would have to attend CSPC meetings. How's that? Like, obviously, you're not going to go to the, that would not be fun for you.
I wondered when the motion was passed,
So
how
how does that
I would do
work?
that. So I'm hoping to go to OAPC next. I think they're next. I've asked to attend that meeting. We're looking at different ways of doing that. There might be live streaming, et cetera, to accomplish that goal without going to, I think, 90-ish.
Yeah,
Yeah, 190, so.
yeah, that would make sense. Or like a quick recording. Listen
Yeah.
at your own will. Okay. cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I speak? Or does
Yeah.
that be a question?
No.
Thanks. So one of the reasons we felt that it was important to have legal here is because during this debate, I know myself and a few other trustees were getting a lot of parents that were concerned about this policy passing. And they had a lot of questions. So, and some of you are sitting at this table actually right now. So I'm hoping that because legal is here, we wanted to give everyone the opportunity to ask questions and get the answers. Because sometimes I'm getting asked questions, I am not a lawyer and I'm not able to give you the advice that our legal counsel can. So if you feel comfortable asking the questions, this is the time to understand why. Because I'll be honest, I didn't support this motion when it first came. I didn't support it even after the court decision. But we were told in no uncertain terms that it is the law and that we had to approve it. And that's what the board did. So even after saying that, there were still some questions and some pushback. So we asked the board to give parents the ability to ask questions and not just have, the recording sent to them in their mail. So we're here. Ask away.
Yeah, it sort of feels like a slippery slope a little bit because, when we redid the parent council bylaws, one of the big issues was the chair or one of the co-chairs be Roman Catholic, which I believe is still in there, right? We didn't take it out, but it was very heated when we redid these bylaws. Is that something, because is it in the Education Act that has one of the, right? So that's another thing that probably is going to come up in the future. So it's kind of like the chairs don't have to be Roman Catholic. And then what's next? Like, is it in the Education Act that trustees have to be Catholic?
I don't think so.
I think section 93 states that there were, let's say, governors. They may not have been called, and they're not called trustees, they're called members of the board in the Ed Act. But that would have been, the governance part of it is protected by section 93.
Mhm. So it's just the governance part. So technically,
And employment.
your parent councils aren't. And yeah, teachers. Okay, just curious.
I think just based on what you were asking and what you're asking, the question is, does it require taking it to court in order to have actions? Or is it a matter of bringing it to, if there is a concern that parents believe is necessary to be looked at, is it a matter of bringing it to legal and then legal looks at it rather than only a decision being made if it's brought to the Supreme Court? Like,
I think you operate, people would operate as matters stand unless you're looking for, inviting inquiry or et cetera. If you're comfortable with the way things stand, you would stay with it. If the chair or, has concerns, et cetera, those could be brought forward. If anything that's going on is not compliant with the law, then you would bring it forward. But in any organization, if you continue business as usual, there's a time when somebody may challenge it or may not challenge it because they're not concerned about it, because people don't feel wronged, et cetera. Here, Daria felt wrong in the case and she brought it forward.
okay, so the elephant in the room that I feel is there, and I could be way off here, but like sexual orientation, for example, would be one of those things that may not be stipulated as something permissible based on our Roman Catholic roots. And so would this decision be something that would then be used as a discussion point if that were to be something that is brought up?
So you raised sexual orientation, you raised it generally. there's no context to it. And again, the context matters. I'm not gonna answer a hypothetical. This is not looking at that. It did look at governance. It looked at whether they were part of governance and so on. So I'm not gonna get in discussion, but I'm also, like, this was limited to student trustee.
Okay, got it.
And governance features that are protected by section 93. Whether something's protected or not by section 93 is part of a long, lengthy analysis. And I'm not going to answer hypothetically and without a factual basis because it would be irresponsible if I did that.
Thank you for your answers.
So any more questions? Okay, so I guess with regards to, thank you very much. It was very well explained and we went through all the process. I love the flow charts because it gives a breakdown. And, right, we're big fans of flow charts. We really use them all the time. I guess it's not a question, more of a concern. So now that we've made this amendment, right, we have a student that can take on this leadership role, right, and they're not Roman Catholic. Again, as the chair of CPIC, I am Roman Catholic, and I make it a big part. When I lead prayer, I speak to it. I kind of, we're in a Catholic school board, so I do. It's not just we're just not praying and moving on, right? We kind of create context to it. So this student, because we said they basically have no authority anywhere. However, at the student level, they do lead CSLIT, or CSLIT, is that correct? Right. They do attend on behalf of the Catholic School Board events. Again, both student trustees were at iSymposium. They both were actually part of the Mass for both readers. Now, when you're not Roman Catholic, there's a gap now created because they won't be able to not participate, but you can't teach something you don't understand.
Can't represent it.
No, I'm just saying, if you want to speak to scripture, and there's always scripture on every one of our reports, right? At the top, there's always a line of scripture. So what is board doing now to fill this gap? That now this student is going to be, they'll not understand maybe the scripture. They may not be able to participate in liturgy when leading a retreat of elementary school kids. So again, and Gabrielle brought up the baptismal piece, right? Because it takes one parent to be baptized to enter our school board. And we see parents going to parishes to get joining the RCIA program, which is the conversion program, becoming Catholic, for the purpose of putting their child in the Catholic education system. So obviously they want their child in it. But as our kids are going through elementary and they're trying to get their sacraments, and I'm even speaking tonight as a catechist, right? It was very eye-opening to teach a sacrament to the kids in front of you who don't know how to look up a verse in scripture. Don't know the four gospel writers. And again, I understand why we made this change, but now we're going to have this gap. And moving forward, how big will this gap get? And what will the long-term impact have on the overall of the Catholic school board, Catholic education, promoting our sacraments, speak to our scriptures, understanding our scriptures, even to the interpretation that we need to interpret today, because interpretation of scriptures today can be somewhat different, speaking even to the piece that Gabriella brought up. So does the board have a plan, or are we just gonna see what the next election hopes and we cross our fingers that we always have Roman Catholic? Because again, the chances, if we look at it mathematically, right? I'm not sure how many non-Roman Catholic students, high school students we have, right? We said there was 5,000 in Europe. I'm not sure it's 5,000.
We just had a student run 2 years ago that couldn't. And I can't remember his name, but he was and he couldn't run because.
So I'm saying that what are the chances of a non-Catholic student? Like we had the one, several years ago, but if you look at it from a mathematics standpoint, depending on how many kids there are based on the overall population, and it happens, we hope, and again, not safe, and this gap starts, what is the plan? Like, is someone keeping an eye on this so that we don't lose this content for these, especially when now dealing with because our bigger kids teach our little kids. All right, and my pastor said the other day at church, if you can't give what you don't have. So if you weren't brought up, and everyone's brought up differently, even in their faith, we're not all the same type of Catholics, right? But if you don't have, how do you give? So that's the thing with me. I totally agree with Dishni. This child was wronged and went and obviously fought for justice, and justice prevailed and whatnot. But now that we're at this point, what is our board now doing, right? In case this gap.
I get two things, and I'm not being cheeky. Our board is following the decision of the court that recognizes this, that thought it through on a full record, that had all the arguments in front of them from the school board and from the student. So they are part of student representation. We accept them as such, not just accept, they're part of it. We are a publicly funded school board. We accept public funds. And as such, in our high school, we agreed in 1987 that we would accept public funding and allow students that are not Catholic in. And that comes with certain things, including inclusivity and making them feel welcome, as the court found. So, you know, when you think about this gap, et cetera, I mean, I don't see a gap right now. You know, you're thinking slippery slope. And again, I think,
I don't like to use that word.
yeah, the court is not that interested in slippery slope. The court is interested in the facts that are before it. So I would say, you know, at the board, we follow the court's decision, and we have faith and believe, you know, that that's the right decision based on the facts. You know, if that's what the court says, we respect that. And we have non-Catholic students at our high school, and they can't be excluded. And so the same way we resolve other issues that we see, we would deal with them if they arise and when they arise.
Because, well, and again, because you use the words faith and belief, and those are the words we use in faith. That's, again, in our religion, we have faith and belief. So two, this is one and the same. Okay. Any other questions? Comments?
I have one other question.
Oh, okay.
Thinking outside of the box. How about if, like, what if this were to go back to board? A parent had suggested a couple of weeks ago that one of the requirements, not be a Roman Catholic, but get a letter from a priest. Would that be a way to keep, you know, the faith aspect alive?
I think you would have students who are Muslim or other religion would say, I can't get that because I would need to be religious. Otherwise, what's the Roman Catholic priest doing if they're writing letters for everybody? Then everybody would do it. They would presumably be writing a letter on the basis of someone being Roman Catholic. So that would end up being indirectly, or to me, quite directly discriminating in the same way as having the requirement. You might not state it overtly, but it's stating it to me pretty clearly. And if it's not clear, it would have the same effect as excluding them right in the policy. So it would be a workaround is the way I would see it. And a workaround that would not succeed because it amounts to the same thing. It would be exclusionary.
When someone becomes a trustee or student trustee, they have, when you're, I don't know what the proper word is, like inducted into, like you become a new sworn in, thank you. And there is the, help me out here, Joe. You have to see, so when you become a new trustee, or every year, the trustees come in, they have to swear to, or there's that.
An oath to the magisterium.
Right. So how does that work for a student who say is Muslim or another religion that is not Catholic or Christian? How will that work for that student? If they're coming in and they have the oath
I
to
don't know if the student trustees.
There is a note that they swear. We would have to look at that. And see what to do with it and how the decision impacts it.
Because obviously
I
if
don't
they-
have the words of it in front of me now.
But because obviously if they're not Catholic or Christian, they wouldn't be taking an oath to the magisterium. So something's gonna have to change there, right?
They may, right? They may, right? I'm just looking at different things. They may say, I'm at a Catholic school and I understand what it means to be a Catholic school. I understand there's teachings. I understand, that there'll be religious symbols around, and by being here, I'm okay with that. And I understand that. I believe, they could even say, I believe in those values, or they may say, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with learning about it. We don't know that, right?
Well, thank you very much for this evening. It was, it's always a pleasure to have, because we, over this I think this year we've had like several different, from legal to superintendents to our CFO join us, and it's always a pleasure for the parents here to have like, it's almost like one-on-one with. Ask as many questions as you want for as long as time permits usually. Sometimes we run out of time though, but see what can be good. So could I get someone to Gus and a
I'll
second?
second.
China, is there anyone opposed? So the report was received. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Everyone. Yeah, so we'll continue with our agenda. Item 8, so item 8 is delegations. We have none this evening. 9, unfinished business. And no communication received. So 12A is our we touched on it last meeting. Our CPIC elections. One of the things we actually did we approved the dates for deadline dates for both interested candidates and our deadline dates for our community representative. We approved our election dates. We had to waive our bylaw because we didn't have the 10 days in between. And that information has already been now started to disseminate it to our CSPCs, and well as also working on the package. CPIC elections becomes an AGM item, right? So that was something we added to last year. So this way, when our CSPC election and AGMs occur, one of the items that they will discuss is CPIC elections. But information has already been disseminated. If you go to the website. This is all up to date. Right, all our information, but not. So if you're speaking to, and I know one of our members has already started to speak to parents in his ward, he may not repeat as to finding a replacement. So our website is all up to date, applications, dates, information. So, and again, it's just to remind everyone who's up for election. Okay, so, right, it's there. So if you're an odd ward, right, your term is up come October. All our secondary reps, the 3 reps, their term is, it's only 1-year term, so their term is up. And then we have by-election. So we had some even wards that weren't filled. So we will try to fill those, and they will be 1-year term as well. And then, and again, we always have our representatives. This year we had 1 out of the 3 positions filled. And again, those are 1-year terms. So this is all up and running, and information is going. We'll be reaching out to communication to help us create a poster, because we do want to use, we have found School Messenger to be very successful. Our principals using School Messenger is very successful in getting our message out. Well, we've done things in the past, so we are gonna, that's gonna be one of the ways. Gone are the days of flyering the schools, and we used to do that years ago. We used to put flyers all over the schools, at every school, that there was a CPIC election. And since obviously things have changed, parents, not as many parents go into the school as before and whatnot, just for changes. Now, we're gonna do it virtually. We'll do it through Twitter and try to get those attention. And for those parents, again, the opportunity to sit around this table. For those of you who've been around this table, you know, you've seen that we've had several opportunities to deal with. Again, this evening, we had legal, we've had superintendents from Catholic community, we had our CFOs. In the past, we've had our superintendents of equity at this table. This is a great opportunity for parents who kind of want to bring a voice of that ward they represent, or speak to certain things like that, deal with at the board level. So we want to put that out because we know there's parents out there. Sometimes it's more getting the messaging out and kind of getting them into these seats. Okay. Are there any questions with regards to elections or things?
Just through the chair, just at the last principal meeting, I highlighted all of this for principals, so they should be very much aware from kind of our level that these are priorities. All of the stuff that Manuela had sent out to CSPC chairs, we re-highlighted at meetings at the last one, which was last week. So just to add to that.
Next year, could we possibly maybe get this out a month, like, you know, like end of April, early May? Just because a lot of CSPC councils don't really have a June meeting.
Yep.
So like we don't. So if it comes out now, and it's great that you're telling principals, but because there's nothing for them to tell, like there's no one for them to tell. Like they'll send the email out, I'm sure, they'll send something out, but if, you know, there's nothing.
You can again, it's a matter of like working, like
Yeah.
getting the information from Manuela to
Just like a little earlier, like,
Yeah.
that's it, just so
and
maybe
again,
that
that's
May
why,
meeting.
that's why this year I think, and we didn't do it last year. We didn't do last year. The communications were differently. We almost each took a turn so that we weren't inundating our CSPCs with information or our parents. Because again, we know too many emails do the same as kind of no emails.
Yeah, but
Right?
if they could have that information at a CSPC meeting, because then parents talk, you know, and it kind of spreads out, right?
So again, yeah, something
Yeah.
we can definitely. Thanks, Jen. Anything else?
Why don't you have like ward meetings? Like each ward gets money from your budget. And you invite the CSPCs and parents and open it up.
Well,
And every ward
that-
has one meeting.
Well, that's been on the table for, well, I don't want to say for years, because the last 2 years we were virtual. I think we may have tried to do a virtual ward one. I'm not sure if we had success prior to pandemic. I know, well, okay.
In-person dinner.
I
it's
just
only
still 12. Goes back to like March 2nd of 2020.
2019.
2019.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Where we had a ward meeting, Ward 3. We had about 50 people in the room. So we had invited the principals, vice principals, chairs, full council, so whoever wanted to come. We made it an open invitation. So we had about 50 people in the room. We were at Cardinal Mogudu. It was an excellent turnout. We actually had great conversation with different chairs and with principals and whatnot. And we promised them a follow-up. We promised them a follow-up. And it never happened. But that day, again, and I had come back, honestly, and I I was the vice chair at the time, so speaking to the chair, and he said, how did it go? I said, it went amazing. You know what I mean? We put out some food, me and the trustee, me and I had created an agenda, and we covered, we kind of, between the two of us, we came up with the top 3 questions that were being asked. So it was a little bit of learning and a little bit of an opportunity for us to introduce ourselves and to kind of spread the word. But it worked out well. And I think that is, I'm not sure if this year, and this year was on the table as well for any rep that wanted to kind of take it on. But moving forward, that is an opportunity to kind of, this year, I think we were looking to do cluster meetings. We were thinking, instead of ward. We were gonna do, because of some of the vacancies we had and some of the newer parents around the table, we could kind of pair up a newer parent, an older parent, a vacant, and make sure that every area was covered. But it was we kind of fell short in time with that. But moving forward, it's definitely, right? We, again, from a financial perspective, we have that opportunity. It's just a matter of kind of and we'll have that Ward 3 reunion.
I'm writing it down now because I'm doing it in September. We're
4
gonna start
weeks.
planning in August.
Any other questions, everyone? So if everyone knows their ward, if your ward is up there, you gotta fill out the application. If it's not up there, you're still good for 1 more year. Okay, that's basically the gist of it. Can I get someone to, yes.
I'll second that.
Anyone opposed? They're long, okay, so nothing 15. Okay, so here we go, 15A. So 15A is our reports from our TCDSB board officials. Last meeting it was deferred because we went into overtime. So twice as long tonight.
Long overdue. I'll be short though.
No, there's only a basketball game on tonight. We're not too worried.
Joe, thanks. So I mean, this is our last meeting. I think we've had in general, as CPIC, we've had a productive year, but as a education system provincially and locally, we've had a very challenging yet fruitful year with coming back to regular, what we call normal schooling and what we've seen with families and schools coming back. So I think we're very well positioned going into next year with all the issues that have kind of come to the fore in education and coming out of this year. So as we go into June, we've got a ton of, June is kind of like Heritage Month, everything celebration month, right? So this week currently we're on National Accessibility Week. That conversation around the senior table and around school buildings and facilities and at the board table has been a very hot topic around the state of our schools, how accessible they are, and disabilities. There was some conversation around looking at policies and what lenses go through that. I do want to comment that all policies do come up for review and they go through what's called the Governance and Policy Committee. And previous to those committees, senior staff or staff review all those policies to make recommendations going forward. And they're all very much done with intentionality, with an equity focus and lens for as best we can think of disadvantaged communities. So all policies do go through a revision cycle constantly as we go. So the heritage months that we celebrate this month are Filipino Heritage Month and Filipino Heritage Day is June 12th. We have Italian Heritage Month, National Indigenous Month, and National Indigenous Day is June 21st. And one of my schools, which I know we're not supposed to talk about our own schools, but are piloting an event to celebrate National Indigenous Day. So we're doing kind of a pilot event there that will hopefully then be a model for other schools to replicate as we go forward. So we're kind of excited about that. We have Portuguese Heritage Month, Pride Month, and the Sacred Heart of Jesus. So schools are very busy. And as you know, all CSPCs are spending all their progress and PIC money. So Manuel is very busy with answering questions around what's applicable and not applicable, which we see as a success because our office has been flooded with questions and very good questions around that. And all the graduations are coming back online and barbecues. And so June is definitely, with the weather, going to be the month of parent engagement. So we look forward moving into September. We're going to continue to try and get from the staff's point of view, try and get the message out around CPIC so that we can continue to have the fruitful discussion going into, what is it now, 2023, 2024. And, I'm kind of settled in the role. I know it a little bit better. And I'm excited to continue to work with Manuela going into next year and all of you and to see what great things we can do when now we kind of know what normal will be and things can only get better. Schools and principals have shifted to a very strong focus going into September, although it should have always been, but we've had a couple of years where health and safety has been our priority, where student achievement will now regain being the primary focus and coming back to really looking at our numeracy, literacy work at the student desk. That translates to EQAO and all that sort of stuff. Those are just benchmarks to kind of help us inform the learning that we're doing. But we want to make sure that teachers are getting the best professional development in order to do the best for the kids that are in front of them. That's it for me, I think. I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any? Okay, Jen?
This may not be in your realm.
Yeah, nothing is, so my answer is I'll get back to you.
I'm here and I'm gonna ask the question anyways. This is something, I think this is sort of like a school level CSPC thing, and I've talked to other people at CSPCs. All the PPE that's sitting in the schools, which some of that's gonna expire, and I know we have a ton of it at our school, I know others have tons of it at their schools. What is gonna happen with all that?
So
Can we
there's
auction it for funds?
There should be a return piece through facilities.
Okay, I guess because we've been in transition with like different
Yeah.
principals the last,
So
so maybe.
that messaging, I mean, if it's specific, I'm sure it's a lot of schools.
Yeah.
But if it's specific to your school, the superintendent would know how that kind of works. But I believe, and I'm trying to think of at our table with my schools, I believe there can be a return piece. I think sanitizers got an expiry date on it or
Yeah,
something like that.
sanitizer, yeah.
But a lot of those funds were a lot of that was funded by the ministry. And I think we're looking at moving them to warehouses and stuff like that. So
Okay, so would that include the sanitizer, the masks, and those, or
those,
it takes up the shields take up a lot of space and we don't have a lot of space,
Yeah.
you know?
well, I would say anything that needs to be off school site because masks are, I mean, there should be enough for when people request, right? Because they're still allowed. Sanitizers, I think, is something here to stay. But anything that needs to be housed off site, there's a storage facility at all 4 quadrants of the city. So principals can have things moved there. Now, that can also take time, so.
No, I realize that, but it's just
they
taking
can-
up the limited amount of space we do have for storage is kind of.
And I totally get it because schools
Yeah.
have no storage. Typically, those requests go through the caretaker and then like a truck comes and
Okay.
picks them up. Okay.
But it's not the CSBC's place to say
No,
that, right?
well,
So
I
like, how do we
mean,
kind of?
it's a question.
It's
Some space that we
it's
can
to-
house things for the school.
It's to, like, it's a conversation we can have with
I would
our
say-
principal and say, hey, like, what are, have you thought about maybe?
Well, I would say the CSPC's role is to advise the principal, and if it's something that comes up at a meeting, the principal can take that back into, right? Because if it's.
And I'm sure he would love to have it go too, so, yeah.
It's an advisory position.
Use like all the plexi thing, the plexi.
Yeah, we got a lot.
Right, like those would be wonderful to kind of build like mini greenhouses. For like,
How many greenhouses can you buy?
find an Italian man in the neighborhood.
They never get, we
That's the
propose
biggest,
many
you know.
uses, but it never happens, so it's just still sitting there in a room and.
Couldn't they be like donated to food banks or something? Like
Which the,
the sanitizers that are getting expired, like charity organizations that might need it.
so I don't want to actually comment about that part because there's like, that's kind of Derek Boyce's AD department, so I don't want to say something that I'm wrong on, but the question would be to consult with facilities and they'll be able to say, no, Ryan, you got to do this, this, and this. And then I would take it back to my schools. That would be kind of as a field SO. So you can always do it through a CSPC, but you can always email your principal or.
Yeah.
There, yeah.
Other questions? Someone to receive Ryan's report? Gus. Seconder Brian. Anyone opposed? No, that's received. So we'll move on to 16, which is our trustee report. Again, last meeting was deferred, so twice as much to say.
No,
the
I
same.
don't actually have my
No?
notes from last week. I totally forgot it was different. So the biggest thing that happened was our budget was passed for 2023-2024. So that passed on May 18th. We had canceled the May 11th corporate services meeting. The budget took up a lot of our time in the last few meetings. So besides that, the student trustee, the amendment to the policy I was going to speak to, and something else I was going to speak to is the high performance athletic programs. That motion passed unanimously at board. I know that some schools are very interested in starting the pilot project. September 2023, James Cardinal McGuigan has the ball in motion already. So this is could be done in elementary or secondary. We also asked staff to put for a high performance athletic school through the LTAP.
What's that? What is all this? Yeah.
LTAP is the long, don't ask.
No,
me.
no, for the
LTAP
high
is
performance-
long-term
high
accommodation
performance
policy.
Long-term accommodation policy. Explain high,
Is
No,
this
it's okay. I
specific
understand.
schools?
I don't need the actual acronym, but that's what it
Oh, sorry.
means. That's what it means,
I
right?
don't-
Long term.
Long-term. Yeah, so we want to make sure that it's feasible to have a high-performance athletic school. The high-performance athletic programs are different. So any school can try or can apply for a for the programs. I'll give you an example. James Cardinal McGuigan wants a high-performance athletic basketball program and soccer. So they're right now working out the kinks with, I guess, Superintendent Campbell to make sure that that starts, the pilot project starts in September.
How does a school make that request?
Yeah, so right now it would be up to the program. So there needs to be like an organization that is interested in working with the school. The school would have to have a principal that's interested to work with the program. So I don't know how it would work in the elementary school level yet, because I haven't had any schools interested at the elementary school level, but in the high school level, we're going to work on their scheduling. So the scheduling, the programming would be done. So let's say, I'll use hockey as an example. The kids are gonna go to York Ice Canland at 8 in the morning from 8 to 12. They're gonna have their high performance athletic hockey program. And then their timetable for the afternoon will be worked with, like they'll work it so that it makes sense.
Does that extend the school day for them?
Not for the program, but the high performance athletic schools, if that does happen, it would probably have different timetabling for schools.
And then does
An extended day.
if like, let's say there's one school has a high performance hockey program.
Yeah.
Does that mean that only kids from that high school can attend that program, or can neighboring school kids attend that program?
So the one that they're doing at James Cardinal McGuigan, it's a group, like a team that's coming in, a high performance. So it's a group of like 15 to 20 that are coming in. So the program itself for September is, they're already a team. So right now they're going to a private school. They're leaving this private school, coming to McGuigan.
Fascinating.
It's an elite like basketball program. And then the principal of the school is working right now, wanting to get different, like for the soccer, I'm not gonna tell you, I know how that one was gonna look like, but it's basically making sure that the timetabling works so that the students can continue training, going to tournaments, going and getting their academics in,
Cool.
working together.
So the program's not for the kids that go to that school?
This is it's a high performance athletic program. So these are kids that come specifically for this, like, for this program.
Because that
it's
school
like,
has facilities for that?
No, and we would be
Huh.
making,
Who
Who's funding this? Sorry, I'm confused.
I just don't understand
Who's
it. I
funding
love it. I
this?
think it's great.
So for September 2023,
Huh.
we look at using, let's say, their dues are paid to the program already. So they're already paying like
Oh.
whatever program they're in. And then to use, let's say, ICE, the parents would have to pay the $35, whatever it is a day, to rent the ice at Canlan or to rent the gym at a community center or York University. So it's like partnerships that we're working out. So right now, James Carl McGuigan is working with York University. They're not working with yet. They're trying to create a partnership with York University to use some of their facilities during the school day. So that, because let's say the two schools in Etobicoke, that's what they're doing right now. The public school boards, they've created partnerships with community centers, with different universities or colleges. And it's through these partnerships that we're able to do it.
So there's. Sorry, I'm just wrapping my head around this. So it's not for our students and our students are not benefiting from this elite athletic program.
No, you have to be an athlete.
No, I know, but so if one of our kids is an athlete, they can join this?
So for the ones that they're working at James Carl McGuigan, no. These are teams that are already, so the coaches are coming with the team. So
Right.
let's
It's
say
like
Team
they're-
X is coming, and they're gonna be, but there's other ones that they're, because it's not all gonna happen in September.
Right.
The long-term
This is a pilot.
accommodation
Yeah.
plan is going to look at different ways to roll this out in different schools.
That's a great idea from the perspective, at least from where I'm looking, from the perspective of increasing our student population, given that we've had a decrease. So that's a
Yeah, so the
a
TC.
great way to establish a foundational program that would in time incentivize people to participate or to look at TCDSB as an option to increase. I would imagine that would be one of the
Yeah.
intentions, right?
Yeah, and so hopefully if the high performance athletic school comes in, then it's like TCDSB students, applying to go to
So
the
That's
school.
why there's a difference between the school and
Yeah,
the program.
school and the programming are two separate things. So let's say you have a child that's in gymnastics. And they could only do their academics in the morning because they're training in the afternoon. So the coach would work with the school principal to accommodate the athlete's schedule
Yeah.
during the school
Well, the
day.
TDSB has those. So
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
And so we're a little late to the game, but we're
I have a
finally.
thought about this super early, but like, can we possibly table looking at former Don Bosco as a school for that?
So, but I promised Derek Boyce that I would not
Okay.
give any input on where I want the school.
That would be a great
Maybe
school.
maybe I can just comment and I'm learning it too, but maybe to help clarify some of it where senior staff team is our staff is taking it away to see what are options that are available, how can things work, and then come back with some recommendations to board as we go, right? And it sounds the James Cardinal McGuigan pilot, what it does is it helps to bolster sections in the school and population when those athletes are coming to do their academic portion, which is nothing but good, right? And then you've got these high performing students that would have to go other places to get their credits or their schooling where they're being drawn to our school.
Well, but then there's also the optics of it from the perspective of how it can benefit also the TCDSB from the place of like a nurturing ground for high performance. And eventually it's not only high performance, but high performance athletics, but there's all kinds of spaces where we're seeing students are being so incredibly effective at things that we probably were great at in our 20s, right? And they're like maybe like a high functioning math or whatever it might look like. So I think it's a great place to look there and see what's wanted and needed for the future of our students and of our education. So that's
That's really
exciting.
I think that we're a little late to the game, but I'm finally like happy that we're on track.
That's great.
How do we get it started for elementary schools? Like, let's speak to the principal or something?
Yeah, so I think the conversation will have to be had. You have to have a principal that is willing to like champion a pilot project for September. And then the principal would have to speak with the superintendent. But really the key is to getting the partnership with the organization that wants, or the student athletes to come in.
You have to find that organization.
You have to find it. One of the reasons why it's easier done in secondary is because they don't have the athletes on a team don't have to all be Catholic in secondary school, whereas in elementary, to get an entire team that's either Catholic or one of the parents is Catholic, it's a little bit harder. So I've been focusing more on the secondary so that staff could have an opportunity to tell us what's happening in the elementary level. But it does really well. There's Holly Crest that's doing amazing at TDSB. I mean, I have one of my sons that's leaving our board to go to Holly Crest next year because we don't offer the program at our board. And that program at Holly Crest has been growing every year. Every year it's been growing. So that's a great program.
The question for me, is there going to be equal, or is how it's, because you guys seem to be in the planning stage, is it going to be equal for boys and girls
Well,
to give them opportunity? Because I got 2 daughters who play high level sports and there's not a lot.
Yeah,
And I
so-
have a cousin who goes to, is it Holly Crest, the one that,
Yeah.
he plays soccer there.
so for the pilot project that's starting in September, it's going to be really specific to, again, I'm only speaking about James Carl McGuigan because it's the only school that I know of that is actively.
No, but let's say you go
Working
towards a
in-
model like Holly Crest. Is it going to be something like 50-50 boys and girls, or is it going to be 75-25?
Oh, I don't know that. I can't.
Well,
answer that
is it gonna work towards that? Because if it's not, then forget it. Like, I will rally day and night against it. I'm sorry.
That, the school, the high performance athletic school program, that was sent to staff through the LTAP process, for them to tell us, is it even feasible? Will it make sense, like, to have a school? Where are we gonna put the schools? Like, what are the schools gonna look like? I can't answer those questions because I don't.
Well, you guys must have some guidelines you're basing your decisions on.
This just passed May 18th, so
Yeah,
it's a really
Okay.
new.
I think it's something that I can take back to that group working on it, because I think it's an important comment. Specifically, we've had a lot of conversations around female athletics and the inequities in some of our high schools. Those conversations have been at board. But it's very, the process was at last board, not process, the discussion was at last board. So these are conversations that are very early started at staff, but I can definitely bring that up. So I'm sure it is part of the discussion, but I can indicate that it came up at CPIC with our associate director boys.
And then when it comes back to board, I'll make sure that I also ask the questions to make sure. When the LTAP comes back.
So what is the process of informing the parent community about the developments of this? Just to stay on, like, is it a matter of you bringing it to CPIC?
Oh, that's an amazing question. Like,
Something like-
Brian, you could tackle
Okay,
this.
well, it's way too early. Okay, go ahead.
No, I'm not talking about right now.
Communication
Like, let's not
depends.
tell everyone 2 minutes ago. I'm just saying in the future, how are we going to, because this is, at least the way I see it, is this is an incredible opportunity to bring families and parent voices into something that parents can really get behind to encourage, to champion. And I see this as an incredible opportunity to use that to create those bridges that perhaps over time and space have been lost or have been weathered. So,
I'll add it to my list in the email that I have for Director Boyce.
And like a direct email to CSBC, not like to CSBC.
And to principals too.
Other than that,
Yeah, if it's exciting, sends it to you.
Well,
sometimes
Like,
even the
that's-
I would say
CSBC
principals are even further down the line on, like, they haven't heard any of this, so.
Principals have to
unless they're
adapt
watching
it too.
board, so.
yeah, unless they watch.
They haven't heard anything even on the, like,
I've been getting-
on the program, not on the school, but on the specific pilot program.
On the pilot program, Unless you follow us on social media, or you
Watch board meetings.
watch board meetings.
Follow me people on social media.
I know, it's, that's really the only two tools that I have right now, besides a newsletter that I'm gonna put out in June, which will probably be too late, but this was, this has been something that they've been pushing for in Ward 3 for a very long time. It's not something that we just like
Where's Ward 3?
fly by night in Humber River, Black Creek,
That's
or
close
Ward.
enough.
In the Northwest.
Yeah. Oh, that's like-
And our principal at James Cardinal McGuigan this has been something that he's wanted to champion for a while, so we're really excited about it. But yeah, I hope that it gets mentioned in a principal meeting. I don't know if it has been.
Like Thursday, was it just came up, it's Monday. People get there.
Other than that, May 30th, our student achievement meeting is canceled because there were 2 reports that aren't finished yet, so that meeting is gonna be canceled. And that's all. The budget again was the biggest. Unless I'm missing anything.
Someone to receive the report. And seconder? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that report is received. 17A is the Paris Catholic Education update. Our OPC rep is away today. Okay, nothing for 18, nothing for 19, nothing for 20. So again, thank you everyone for coming.
Thanks, Joe.
You know. And our next meeting will be September 18th, so in the new school year. It will be virtual.
What's virtual?
Decided that it would be virtual because it's the beginning of a school year and because parents are kind of go. We didn't want to drag everyone into the boardroom.
I won't be.
So again, this year was, we tried something different. I know we're trying to come up with a policy around our this meeting structure. So that's something we can come up with, determine how it went, how it didn't go. Usually the last meeting of the year, I do an attendance thing for everyone to see how the attendance worked, but it will be pushed to September. We are short 1 meeting from last year, right? We went from 8 to 7. We need to kind of be more accommodating and create more balance. Again, we can review the year and see where we were, how we achieved. Like I was saying with Antonella was here, we have tremendous opportunities this year to consult on a number of different things. I forgot to say earlier today, but thank you to Jennifer for taking on the bullying prevention and intervention policy survey compilation, right? She did put together that Google form and then we did send out an answer to Super Acamo regarding that policy.
Did a lot of people fill it up?
No, we only had 4 responses.
You know, considering everybody was here that evening when we talked
Right.
about it, it honestly, I was expecting more responses.
And again, this is a piece, and again, to what I said earlier, we're fortunate that we have staff come and, you know, we get the opportunity to ask questions and whatnot. The other piece too, and again, this is something I think that started at the beginning. When we started with our community engagement, we were always saying, why aren't parents answering the survey? Why do we have so many low responses? But again, in this small microcosm of us, when we put something out, we don't get 100% participation either. So again, this is just a small sample size, right? So when we take us and we put it in the 90,000 or 86,000 student population now, we can't expect like those numbers to dramatically shoot up through the roof, right? So it is like, again, you take a small sample, it will repeat itself just a bigger number. So, and those were the questions we were asking just, I want to say 6 months ago. We were asking why so few people answer. Why are, you know, what are we doing wrong? So again, those are the things maybe even we need to answer when we're sending out forums, or how do we just get the parents around the table more engaged?
As a parent though, just this is from a parent perspective, when I get emails what really bothers me is that when I have to download it to my phone first, then I go in and open it. Because I have an Android phone, I don't have an iPhone.
Mine doesn't do it either.
Yours doesn't, and it's like, I wish it was just in the body of the email. So when I open it, it's there.
And that's,
I have it on Durham Catholic, it's the same thing.
and that's.
Very
It's
annoying,
kind of
it's frustrating.
Because if your phone doesn't automatically,
Frustrating.
I think
Right.
that's something with
That might be in
the software.
But I can go back to Omar and.
Yeah, just mention it, because I think also too, that's like, oh, the parent goes in, they open the email, and they're like, oh, I don't wanna like, forget it, I don't wanna.
Not everyone's phone-
Very frustrating.
It's
not
frustrating.
everyone's phone automatically opens a PDF, sadly.
Yeah. One thing, it has to be PDF for it to be universally opened. If it's a Word document or a JPEG or anything else, which sometimes
Even
it
the.
doesn't.
Even sometimes it doesn't do that.
I know, but the PDF is the best format, right? And then I think School Messenger is created in such a way.
Take that feedback back.
Yeah, School Messenger is created in such a way as there's that download piece is a security.
I understand that, but I'll tell you, and that's why we tell our principals, like when our principal sends something out, we're like, please put it in the body of the email as well, because yeah, I've seen an uptick in responses because it's in the body versus having to download.
Or else it becomes just like another barrier to communication. Like,
Yeah.
Involvement or
I'll check with our CIO.
Logging off, so I don't get the notifications.
frustrating.
When I realize it's off, I have to go back in and log in again. I don't know why it doesn't.
I have the same problems as a I don't do any surveys at Durham. I get it. Yeah. I'll see, maybe he can take it back to the vendor to say this is the problems we're having. Because I mean, how many people are actually doing it on their computers anymore?
I would say majority of our parents are checking their phones. We're hoping, because at least if you have to go home and open up your email and check message, chances are you're not gonna see it in time. So at least if it's on the phone. And again, we've had in the past with whenever we've had an event and we put information out through School Messenger, we've had success. So even though there's these, so maybe taking away these other additional barriers, success will kind of move up. And again, even from a survey response rate, right, it will increase. Again, all those things. Perfect. So September 18th. Okay, so everyone, I don't know, I guess have a great summer. Right, I know it's a little early, but summer is, beautiful weather is here. I know like Ryan said, the fairs are happening. Schools are doing different things, summer's around the corner. And I guess please do keep an eye on your email, because if there's anything does come up between now and September, there's still an opportunity for us to interact and whatnot, if it's virtual or not. And for mileage, I will send out the form again. So if you filled out for the last 2 months, which was November and December, now you will be filling out for April and May. And once you get that form, if you can get it back to myself or Gus as soon as possible, we do want to get them in before the end of the school year. Right, so
They were the only in-person ones?
for this year was only April, May, yes. So November, December, and April, and then again, there's different rates, but once it comes to gospel. Can I get someone to adjourn? A seconder, Brian? Okay, anyone opposed? Perfect, I'm gonna turn.